on this piece of paper, I have just drawn, and you can barely see it in the camera there, in a little egg shape. So I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to fill it with some nice fresh water, and I'm going to tap it just a bit on my paper towel. And I'm going to come in here. I'll hold it up so you can kind of see that glisten of the paper. So this is just, and that was too much water, but I can pull it around a bit, spread it out inside of the shape of my little egg. Okay, so it's all nice and wet. We're going to mix our colors. So I'm going to use this blue, and I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. I'm going to come over here and grab some of this green, because I want, when I think of a robin's egg, I think of this really pretty blue-green color. Now, if I were to use this just as it is right now, it would be really, really, really dark. So I'm going to just pull some and add some water to it. I am just going to lay the brush and just lightly work that color through my egg. Kind of want it a little bit darker here at the bottom. I'll just pick up a little bit more of my paint, and my egg is not going to be perfectly shaped, but that's quite all right in my book. I'm just tapping around this bottom edge, and that's really kind of dark. But remember, watercolors dry a little bit lighter in the end. And we're working fairly quickly because we don't oversaturate our paper. But I am just going to take a little bit more water on my brush here, clean. And I'm just going to help blend that color up into my egg. And you guys can use any color you want. I can take this color and tap it a little bit throughout the egg, and that color will just create some depth in my egg, okay? So if you think of a robin's egg, they usually have those little speckles, the little speckled eggs. So I'm going to come back to my palette again. I am going to grab some more of that gray, and I'm going to grab some of my, it's like a mustardy yellow color. I'm just going to mix the two of those together. You see where it is a bit green? I'll just grab some of my brown. Play with your colors. Now I am tapping this and pulling it off on the side because I don't want a whole lot of paint to drop off my brush when I charge the egg. So I'm going to kind of look at my paper. It's really, put a couple little drops here and there around the egg. And right now I'm working soft, and I'm just going to let those colors really blend in. So I'm charging my blue with another color, and maybe I'll just tap right around this bottom edge just a little bit to give it some depth, because we want it to look like a round egg and not just a blob. But see how those colors are kind of blooming out into the blue? And I like that. So we're going to let this dry just a tiny little bit. And if I want some spots in the egg that are a little bit lighter, I can come in with a paper towel and I can kind of blot some of the color off with the water. And that, as long as the paint's wet, you'll get like a lighter effect. See how that just lightened that speckle up? So I'll lighten that speckle up a little bit, and I'm just kind of dabbing, almost like we're sponge painting, but we're removing paint with the paper towel. So I'm going to come in again. This is still wet. The paper is still wet, even though you don't see that really dark glisten. I mean, that really deep glistening look to the paper. It is still wet. So I can come back in now and maybe grab a little bit of a deeper bit of that gray. Maybe throw a little bit of brown in with it. And it's always a good idea to have that test piece of paper nearby that you can test your paper before going right in. So I'm just going to do some random little spots. I want some little really dark ones. I don't want them to all be the same shape or size. So I'm tilting the brush sideways and dropping it. I'm making smaller dots with the tip. And I'm just doing that around the egg. See, it's looking like an egg already, guys. But you can see here where that paper is wet. I hope you can see it. And where it's wet, the colors are going to they're going to charge out into the blue a little bit more. So, I mean, I could go really crazy and keep adding more and more speckles. And then before this is completely dry, and this is completely optional, I'm just picking up a little bit more fresh water and tapping off. And then I'm just going to go really thinly. I just have what's left of that gray on my brush. And I'm just going to pull around. I'm just picking one side where I think a shadow would be on the egg. And I'm just really lightly dropping that color. Just kind of tapping it on there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. Then I'm going to pick up my brush again. I'm just wetting it. It's pretty wet, but not like soaking, sopping wet. I still have a lot of the gray left in that brush, which is fine because we're just going to create a tiny little shadow. So when I'm looking at my egg, I know my highlight is on this side, and like the sunlight is coming in from, say, the top right corner. So my shadow is down here. So I'm going to come under the egg, and I am just going to create a little circle shape here and at the edge of the egg. And I'm just going to come in with a little bit of my gray that we had left over from the egg, and I'm just going to tap that in. And it will do its thing that watercolor does, and it will eventually fade out into where the paper is still wet. Let me know what you want to see upcoming in watercolor, acrylic, and even hand lettering.